Tim Kurkjian, does Mike Budenholzer look like an exorcist who is in way over his head?
The Exorcist is the only movie that I walked out on. I couldn't take it. I was scared to death, and I left. And then when the Heretic came out, which was the sequel, my brother and his goofball friends at Catholic University told me we were going out to eat and all that stuff. Instead, they took me to the Heretic, and I refused to go in, and they literally carried me into the theater and made me sit and watch it because they knew how afraid I was of The Exorcist. That's what a wimp I was in college, and I still am.
They physically carried you into
Carried me. Now, my brother's friends were really big and strong and lunatics, all of them, and I loved them all. They went out drinking one night, and during their drinking, they went out of the parking lot and moved the car from one parking space to the other. That's how crazy those guys were. So it was not difficult to pick up someone who weighed 130 pounds and carried him into the movie theater. Draw a few strange looks from the guy taking the tickets, like, what are you doing with him? But that's what happened.
Will you be watching the new Russell Crowe flick, The Pope's Exorcist, when it comes out in theaters?
Love Russell Crowe, but the Exorcist word just really gets to me, and I will probably not be watching that. Look, I've acknowledged what a wimp I am. I am not in the business of being scared. I don't enjoy that. If I'm going to go see a movie, which I rarely do, I don't want to be scared. I also can't do roller coasters, and I can't do anything high or anything fast or anything scary. I'm just terrible at that stuff.
Is The Exorcist like The Line? Like, what if it was like The Muppets Exorcist? Like, would you watch that?
Well, yeah, if it's the Muppets, it'll be funny. And it's just pointless for me to watch this stuff. It's not going to be pleasurable, and so I'm not going there.
How old were you when you walked out of The Exorcist, and how far into the movie were you when you walked out of The Exorcist?
I was 17. The movie had just come out, so I didn't even know anything about it. And pre-internet, you don't get all these reports like this is the scariest movie I've ever seen or anything. So I knew nothing about it other than it's going to be a little scary. And I walked out about halfway through it because I couldn't watch it anymore. I was terrified, literally. I had trouble walking downstairs in my house at night after watching The Exorcist.
How many horror movies have you seen in your life? And when was the last time you saw a horror movie?
I haven't seen one in a long time. Poltergeist was probably the last one that I saw, and that was fascinating, but I only had to see that once, and I got through the whole thing. But, the other ones, I just can't go there. It's just pointless for me.
Would you watch the Saw movies for charity?
No. Oh.
Charity, Tim.
Charity.
Tim. Tim,
all right,
actually, Tim,
I think this is abundantly clear. I would do anything for charity. I would watch the Saw movies, but I can't promise I would keep my eyes open for the whole thing.
I believe that we should put this together, a horror marathon where Tim Kurkjian has to, for charity, just watch several horror movies.
And we get to watch him watch the horror movies?
Yes.
Okay, great.
But then we would raise money for charity. I think we have to figure out how to do this. We are happy to see him. We're always happy to see him. Billy is already complaining. It did not take long, Kurkjian. Takes your sport millions of years to shift anything. Now they've gone very quickly to, okay, we figured this out. We're going to have a pitch clock. And now Stugotz and Billy are already here saying the game is moving too fast. Slow it down.
Well, just saying, Tim, slow it down a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, we don't need to go 0 to 100. Let's just slow it. And I heard you talking to Mike before the show, and you're going along with this change. And we need someone like you to kind of like dig in a little bit and say, you know what? too much, too soon. Let's slow it down. It's the national pastime. You know what I mean? Not the national, like, express lane. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally understand. Look, we're never getting back to Tommy John's first major league victory, which was a 3-hit shutout over the Indians, and the game lasted an hour and 34 minutes. We're never going back to that, not when the strikeout rate is where it is. But look, I'm in the camp of we got to try something else. Too many walks, too many strikeouts, too many homers, not enough action, too much dead time. I'm with all of that. Now, you still have to prove to me for an entire spring training that this is going to work. But so far, I've been really pleasantly surprised how quickly the players have adjusted to this. I did a 12-7 game. It lasted 2 hours and 59 minutes. Normally, that's a 4-hour game. I did another game, 21 strikeouts, 17 walks. That's a 4-hour and 15-minute game, and it was over in 3:05. And the most encouraging sign was Aaron Boone, the Yankees manager, told me a week ago, he said, yesterday we played a game in Orlando without a clock because they didn't have the technology there, and we still played in 2 hours and 30 minutes because the players were already conditioned to playing quicker. Let's get on the mound and throw it. Let's get in the box and hit it. That's what we're looking for. I am not looking necessarily for quicker games. I'm looking for better games, and better games include more action. That's all.
Well, so that's another thing we were talking about is that I've been looking at the game times and the box scores daily to kind of see like how is this actually speeding up the game? How are the games? And what I found, which has kind of been interesting, is you'll have like those 2-hour 14-minute games, 2-hour 15-minute games, and then you have, and granted it's spring training, but you have like the 17-run games that still go 3 hours, right? So it's speeding it up or it's creating a lot of offense at the exact same time. So either way, you're not going to have like a 4-hour game, but it seems like you also may not have like the tight games anymore.
Right. Well, that's certainly possible. I mean, this is a work in progress, and we're not sure how this is going to go. I said I was pleasantly surprised by this. I was also surprised so far this spring that it's the hitters, at least I'm told, who have to make more adjustments than the pitchers. Look, it's impossible to hit in the big leagues these days. The pitching is so indescribably good. And now you're going to ask a hitter, you're going to be in a hurry. You're going to have to rush your at bat when you're trying to get a hit off Corbin Burns throwing a cutter at 96 miles an hour. It is harder to be in a rush as a hitter than it is as a pitcher. And a bunch of pitchers, most of them veteran pitchers, smart pitchers, have figured out how to manipulate the system for their own benefit. I asked Justin Verlander, do you like the rules? He looked at me and smiled and said, oh, I love the rules. I asked Garrett Cole, do you like the rules? Oh, love the rules. Max Scherzer loves the rules, the mad scientist. He has already got into the hitter's head. I was at a game where a kid stepped in the box with 18 seconds to go on the pitch clock, and Scherzer stared at that kid for 14 seconds. In baseball, if you stare at somebody for 3 seconds, you are told in the 60s, you get out of the box and make him reset. Scherzer himself told me 8 seconds is an eternity holding the ball on the mound. He held it for 14 seconds. That's what our really good pitchers are doing. So I find it interesting. We're making up these rules in order to help the hitters, to get the ball in play more often, to get them to swing and hit it more often. And it's possible this is going to help the pitchers more than it's going to help the hitters. We'll see.
But, Timmy, I'm living in a day where I'm rushing to get home. I'm rushing to get through my meal. I'm rushing to get through a movie. I'm rushing to do this. I'm rushing to do that. Baseball was one of the last places we had where you just sit around, you're not rushing, and you just wait. If it takes 3 hours, so be it. If it takes 7 hours, so be it. It was one of the last places we had left on Earth where you're not in a rush. And now we're rushing to a baseball game.
Put a ball pit in the outfield to make it more interesting. What are you on about?
One of the beauties of baseball, guys, we all know, is that you didn't have to watch all of it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
You turn it on, and you
now
go.
You
and
miss everything.
Exactly.
I mean,
you iron a shirt, whatever. You know, you've only missed a pitch or two. It's not a big deal.
Right.
Yeah, Billy, I agree with you on this.
Thank you.
Before I did the first 3 spring training games from the booth, I watched the first spring training game that we did on TV. I watched every single pitch of a spring training game. And I can tell you, as much as I love the game, it's been years since I watched every single pitch because I had to make sure I saw everything and that nothing happened that I couldn't explain. And then I covered 3 straight games in the booth and I watched every pitch. So I watched every pitch of 4 straight spring training games. It's been a while since I've done that, but this is what you have to do. So look, I'm with you guys. I don't want to rush the game. It's a beautiful sport.
Timeless
I don't think we need, but we need to make some changes because our beautiful sport doesn't value the hit anymore. We don't value athleticism like we used to. We don't value someone who can go first to third or steal second. We don't care about that and we don't incentivize it. That's why I'm all in favor of trying these things with the understanding is if they don't work by opening day, then we make a change. But I've checked with major league officials and they told me we're not going to make any changes. These are the rules. It's up to the players to adapt. And so far they have.
I love that an argument is being made that the sport commanding more of your attention is a bad thing. That something is more compelling and more interesting. Let's slow this thing down.
No, the ponds in the outfield were to make the game more fun.
Yeah.
Okay? But now it's sped up. It's like, look, you go to the bathroom, you're going to miss some action. I want to go to the bathroom knowing I'm going to miss nothing. That's what I'd like to do.
Okay.
In fact, I want 6 outs per inning, Timmy.
Put it on the poll, please, Juju, at LeBatard Show. Should baseball change its times based on Stugotz's bathroom habits? Let me ask you this, Tim Kurkjian. Does Cam Newton look like he owns multiple vehicles, all of them named after the women listed in Mambo number 5? Does Brian Daboll look like he works the cash register at the State Line Diner on Route 17, urging every customer to take 2 toothpicks for the drive home? They're still free, last I checked.
Dan, who texted me yesterday, and Dan texted me just for fun. Please tell all the people who don't understand this one what the greatest looks like ever is, please.
Well, he thinks it is that Adnan Virk is the guy who shows up in the Bond movie to help James Bond and says, "Welcome to Tangiers, Mr. Bond." And it is one of the greatest ever.
He's wearing a white suit when James Bond gets off the plane and helps him down.
That's right. No, he is. Does Greg Norman look like he owns an island where he hunts other men for sport?
He might actually do it.
He might actually own that island. Tim, among the offseason moves, who's more interesting? You have to give me an answer to this. Who's more interesting than the Padres?
I don't think anyone's more interesting than the Padres. Look, I love the Angels because of Mike Trout, who's going to come back and be a monster again, and the whole Shohei Ohtani, what's going to happen to him next. But look at where the Padres are. They added a new shortstop in Xander Bogaerts and signed him into his 40s. They're taking their all-star shortstop, Fernando Tatis Jr., and putting him in the outfield, which they should, by the way, because it's a better move for that team. And, of course, he'll play there once his suspension ends. They just gave Manny Machado $350 million. He is, by the way, 30 years old and over half the way to 3,000 hits. I hope people understand what we're watching here. They have a closer who throws 100 miles an hour as a free agent at the end of the season. And, of course, they have Juan Soto, who's going to, if I were him, I would walk in and ask for an extension today. He might get $500 million in an extension because Peter Seidler, the owner of the team, is spending money at an outrageous rate. He's trying to build a winner that can finally beat the Dodgers and finally win the World Series. And so, yes, they're the most fascinating team in baseball for me.
You kind of petered out there.
Oh, sorry. I was going to finish with, and their general manager, AJ Preller, is like the greatest basketball player, not playing in a uniform right now. And he plays every single day at like 5 o'clock in the morning. And then he goes to work signs people, makes trades, never sleeps, and wakes up the same next morning and plays some more.
That's why he's great. He's playing at 5 a.m. All the good players are asleep.
Does Roger Goodell look like he routinely inquires at the front desk if the art in his hotel room is for sale? Does Pete Carroll look like he has a golden retriever named Daisy? Does Jokic look like the guy who walks around his neighborhood in his bathrobe while talking to his bookie so his wife doesn't yell at him?
Hey, is he the greatest passing big man ever? I mean, better than Walton, better than all those guys? I'm just asking. You guys know better.
No,
Yes.
you know better. You know better. You love basketball. You got three guys in the sport.
It seems like Timmy thinks that he is.
You've got three. Giannis, Jokic, and
Arvydas Sabonis would like a word.
Right. Sabonis was great. There's no doubt. But this guy runs the floor, shoots the three, and makes the pass. I think he's the best passing big guy, and there's passing in the half court. Bill Walton was great at that. There's, passing full court. Wes Unseld was the greatest of all time at that. I watched him at a camp once. He threw the ball off the backboard, caught it in midair, turned in midair, and threw it and hit the backboard at the other end of the floor, 94 feet away. But this guy passes in the half court and in full court really, really well. It's so impressive watching him play.
That Wes Unseld story can't be real. Like, I've heard this story before, and I refuse to believe it.
It's true. He was indescribably strong, 6'7", second in the league in rebounding like 12 times, playing against all those big guys.
Timmy, 3-pointer for your life. Larry Bird, J.J. Redick. Who you got?
Oh, I'm taking Larry Bird in any shooting contest of any sort.
Yep.
Larry would be second to Steph Curry today.
Mm-hmm.
No one's better than Steph Curry. No one will ever be better than Steph Curry. Larry would be the second best three-point shooter in the game, even better than Klay Thompson, who's freaking unbelievable. All you have to do is tell Larry you get an extra point if you go out there. And as a young guy, if he developed that, he would be the second best three-point shooter ever. I'll take him in any shooting contest except for Steph in a three-point shot contest.
How does Tim Kurkjian, who loves his basketball, and unlike your sport, because we're talking about the sport speeding up, and you've evolved with your sport, Tim. You're not one of these reluctant evolvers. When you watch basketball now as someone who loves basketball, do you love the style of play? Or are you like many old people who are like, nope, I prefer Bird's day?
All right, I could watch basketball all day no matter what style of play, but I'm sorry. The game in the 80s was better than the game today. Bird against Magic, Celtics against Lakers, Celtics against the Sixers. That was a better game than the game we play today. That's how I feel. All right, the players today are clearly bigger, stronger, faster, and probably better than ever. But the style of play was way better in the 80s than the one today. Now we get into the lane and kick it out to a three-point shooter. When Larry or anybody got into the lane, when I was watching in the 80s, they would kick it to the Chief or Kevin McHale for a dunk or a layup. Now we're kicking it to a three-point shooter. I understand the difference. I understand the importance of the three. I think basketball was played better in the 80s, and if I hear one more time that Larry Bird couldn't play in today's game, I'm going to scream, because that is the most preposterous thing I've ever heard.
And that's how it was back in my day.
That's right. Bring back the layup. They should, instead of a three-point contest on NBA All-Star Weekend, they should have a layup contest. Encourage what's not done anymore. Show us something different.
And someone told me to go ahead, yell at me again. Bill Russell could not play today. I've been told that before also. You've got to be kidding me. He could guard anyone in any era. 6'9", jumped out of the room. Wherever he played, he won a gold medal or an NBA championship. He's the greatest winner of all time. And I told you they played an inter-squad game once with the Celtics because Russell didn't like to practice. So Red Auerbach said, Russell, we're playing a scrimmage today, and you're playing hard. Do you understand? So Russell said, okay, Red, I will. They picked up teams. It wasn't the first team against the second team. They picked up teams. So there's stars on each side. Russell's team won 50-6. And he looked at Red and said, see what happens when I really try? I ruin the game. That's how good he was.
Put it on the poll, Juju. Would Jay Crowder bully Bill Russell? Would Jay Crowder
Blasphemy!
Would Jay Crowder bully 210-pound Bill Russell?
He would, though.
Tim, you have done maximum. Mike Ryan is disgusted right now at how ancient this show is sounding.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
No, Mike Ryan is
No,
looking.
you're
No,
good,
Mike
Tim.
Ryan says you sound on the subject of basketball the way he sounds on the subject of baseball, which is just longing for another time, a different time before everybody was the best, and we can just slow everything down, and our time could be the best time because it was the '80s.
Look, the 80s were great in baseball also. I'm in the vast minority on this, but I think baseball was played better in the 80s than it is today. Now, the players are clearly, again, bigger, stronger, faster, and better than they were in the 80s. The style of play has changed so dramatically that I think baseball in the 80s was played better than it is today, and that's why they came up with these new rules to try to return things to a crisper pace, balls in play, guys valuing a hit, not just a home run. That's how I see it.
Tim, it's great to see you again. Thank you for being on with us. Does Mike McDaniel look like he enjoys explaining the cloud to your parents?
I wish someone would explain the cloud to me because it's all over my devices and I don't even know what it is. I have 2 televisions in my house. They're televisions and I don't even know how to use them. It's terrible. They're like internet televisions. It's like it's a computer, but it's a television.
They're smart TV.
Figure it out. I am so lost in my own house.
Tim, this is embarrassing. So a smart television eludes you. What other? I am so eager to do the show where Tim Kurkjian can't figure out his devices. You are good about keeping up in your sport, Tim. You have not done so technologically.
No, I had to do a Zoom chat the other day, a podcast that lasted an hour. It took me 45 minutes on the phone to get my computer set to do the podcast. I had to cut and paste some sort of link that would lead me, and I didn't even know how to do it. It was embarrassing. So yes, you should just put a camera on me and watch me slap my forehead like, why can't I get better at this?
It's not you. I mean, back when baseball was baseball, you used to put a VHS in the VCR, and then, you get to like inning 6, and then you have to switch tapes and go and record. Now you just push one button on this remote you talk into, and then you have the games on. You have a million games. What are we doing here?
Too easy.
Yeah. All right, well, thanks for having me, guys. Sorry I'm so old.
He was done with us, Billy. He was done with us.
Russell. God, that was terrible.
Kurkjian, we love you. We love seeing your face. You would agree that Andy Reid looks like the trucker who goes to Vegas only to eat the Clams Casino, correct? Yes, of course you would agree with that. Yes.
Don't mind if I do.
That's right. Don't mind if I do over there. Tim, it's good seeing you, buddy. Thank you, sir.
All right. See you guys.
See you, Timmy.